Chapter 4. The Hinge that Remembers. The 3 shards rest on my desk like vertebrae, and between them a thin geometry has begun. A hinge that looks as if it could be persuaded to open. If only we remembered how to ask, without breaking the door we need to walk through. Vea has traced the arcs across 2 timelines, the present tense of our hands and the past tense of our intentions, and insists that both must carry equal weight, or the whole machine will list and drown. She is right in the way of people who count for a living. If one line becomes filler for the other, the river floods the low bank first. We meet before the windows learn to be morning, and the city hum is a slow thought that has not yet decided to become traffic. Moss lays out consequences like tools, sleep debt here, attention tax there, a memory we can afford to nick without severing a tendon. Kestrel twirls a comment thread that he swears will herd watchers toward a civic stream at the right minute and away at the right second, because influence is simply pacing by other means. Quill polishes a mask that has my angles and someone else's patience, then sets it down as if to say, "Choose what you are not allowed to be, and I will make it convincing." The Hinge's next tooth points at the bank's inner campus, Vea says, and the map becomes a pulse under her finger. Between the compliance theater and the clinic, there's a hallway no one pretends is public. They call it assurance, and its voice is made of signatures. We are not a wrecking crew, Moss says, so we do not knock. We don't, I agree. We ask politely, loudly, in the frequency that systems confuse with permission. In the second timeline, the one that lives in a lab with a single overworked lamp Mira measures a rectangle on the whiteboard and refuses all labels. "Not the words we like," she says. "The words we will be forced to read when we are tired. Explicit consent here, revocation here, and in between. Latency, where a person changes their mind and the system must keep time like a metronome that knows the song is not over. Latency makes auditors nervous, I say. It makes cowards honest, she says, and the brave careful. We enter assurance as if we belong to gravity, which is to say we avoid looking like people who have recently learned to fly. The corridor is a clean argument in tile and glass, with doors that specialize in being unremarkable until you try to pass them. I wear a badge that announces my right to alphabetize other people's promises and a coat that apologizes preemptively to furniture. The shard's hum gets domestic, the way a cat pretends it does not want to be picked up. A woman blocks the next meter of floor without touching it, and her badge says internal in typography that believes in itself. If the auditor was punctuation, assurance has sent us a conjunction. She is there to make certain that what follows can, in fact, follow. "Custodian," she says, as if the noun could be used to sweep me. "Assurance," I say, and offer the ledger before she asks. Because timing is also consent when both parties are fluent. "We're testing revocation latency," she says. "Not the legal window, the human one." "We don't delete anchors," I say, and I feel the sentence choose its footing in my mouth. "Not asking you to," she says. "Asking whether you can hold a person's second thoughts without making them pay first." The cast is small and precise, attention narrow as a key's tooth. A minute of SWS we can borrow from a public pool at noon, and one memory the size of a thumbnail clipped from an old shame that no longer needs to be sharp. The room waits for the hinge to click. Somewhere a note threads the air at a frequency I can almost not hear, and Mira's veto turns its head but does not cross the room, as if to say, "Not this price, not that price, this one is acceptable. We pass." Vea roots a ghost of the shard into our pocket while leaving its polite shadow behind, because sometimes the only acceptable theft is a duplication that insists the original remain itself. "Uplink wants to follow," she says. "Trim the tail." "Use my minutes," Kestrel offers, and for once he means quiet, not noise. We make it to the stairwell that decides whether people are allowed to be tired, and stop, because the whisper chooses now. The syllables are the shape of a name that the bank never sold me and my friends never bought for me. A label that fits my bones as if they had been measured while I was asleep. Quill tilts his head, caught between hunger and etiquette. Moss does not bless or curse the sound. He counts it. Later, I say, and I mean it, the way a hand means a door when it is not yet time to open it. Vea nods in the language of machines that have learned courtesy. We leave by the path designed for people who think they are not being watched, which is to say the most observed path in the building. The debrief happens in a room that pretends to be a kitchen, a kettle, a table, a window that knows the names of 3 rain patterns and has not forgiven any of them. We need 5, Vea says. We have 3 and a politesse, and adds a dot on the map where the hinge insists on a 5th tooth, the way a lock insists on a 5th pin. The next 2 will be guarded by boredom, Moss says, which is to say by people who think their job is to make time heavy. I can move crowds, Kestrel says. Don't, Vea says. Place them. And me? Quill asks, and looks at the mask as if it were a child that needs a name no one will steal. You will be me, I say, and I will be the version of me that believes he will be believed. In the lab, Mira draws a hinge on the board, and then erases one leaf, then the other, then the pin, and waits for the rectangle to remember what it was before we introduced hardware. The system is only as ethical as the slowest decision it allows, she says. Do you mean the worst person? I ask. I mean the best promise on a bad day, she says, and flicks the chalk into a small grave at her feet. We sleep in shifts that are not shifts so much as arguments with pillows. I count breaths and write labels and do not write the one that wants to be written, because names are a price too, and I have already paid more than I can enumerate without visiting rooms I can no longer afford. In the morning, the city has taught itself to be loud again, and the hinge on my desk has become a door that knows it is a door. I open my daybook and write, paid latency, received permission, debt, minutes from a noon the city forgave. Beneath that, the whisper is not a trap, it is an invoice. And beneath that, if I sign it, I will owe the person it names, and perhaps I already do. When the call from the curator arrives, he does not introduce himself. He names my job and pretends jobs are names. Progress, he says, is the distance between 2 permissions, and you have been walking, which is his way of telling me he is reading the ledger of our steps and finding it entertaining. You are not allowed to be amused, I say, which is true and unimportant. I am allowed to be right, he says, for now. After he hangs up, the silence is restful in the way of rooms that have agreed to forgive the last sentence spoken in them. He knows, Vea says. He thinks he does, I say. That's not the same thing. We spend the afternoon not moving, which is to say we set the next day's pace by refusing to run today. The hinge waits, and I begin to understand that it is not a door, but a metronome that will let me open any door I can bear to close again behind me. In the second timeline, Mira erases the rectangle, and the board smiles the clean smile of an apology done properly. When night comes, it does not knock. It inserts the key and turns. I make tea for everyone and write one more line. The brave are careful. And then I underline it twice, because some lessons prefer to be learned by repetition.